Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. And one of my favorite moments in the life of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was when he was with Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And Aisha describes that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam had a sheep and he slaughtered the sheep for food. And they cooked the sheep, and Aisha is really excited that she's going to have dinner not only with Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, but that there's something special like sheep, fresh sheep. Because that wasn't very common in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And his wives would describe that 3 months would pass by without them ever cooking anything. They would just eat a dry food. Radiallahu ta'ala anhum wa alayhi salatu wasalam. And so Aisha is excited and they're cooking this entire sheep, and then people start coming to the Prophet ﷺ. Poor people who are in need, and say, Ya Rasulullah, is there any extra food that you have? Can you spare anything? So the Prophet would take a piece of the lamb and he would give it to that person. Another person would come, Ya Rasulullah, do you have any extra food? The Prophet would give him some of the lamb. A third person, a fourth. People kept coming until all that was left of a sheep. And by the way, a sheep, you're talking about 50 pounds. Right? It's 50 pounds of meat and bone. Until the only thing that was left of the sheep was its shoulder. And that was a favorite part of the Prophet ﷺ. And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha said, Ya Rasulullah, ذهب الشاه وبقي الكتف. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha said, Ya Rasulullah, all of the lamb has left us and all that remains is the shoulder. And the Prophet ﷺ said, rather, بقي كلها غير كتفها. The Prophet said, rather, all of it has remained with the exception of the shoulder. What is he saying? He's saying that all that we gave in sadaqah, that remains with us in the afterlife. Whereas what we eat, we digest, and that's it. That's the end of the story. That's what really leaves us, really teaching us a very important lesson. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, the Prophet, they ate together. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam would eat with his companions. They would eat in groups. And you know what? This is something that we have lost today. Parents tell me, all of a sudden, they're sitting at home, all of a sudden someone rings the doorbell. We're not expecting any guests. Who's this? They go to the door. Who is it? It's Uber Eats. Right? It's their child orders a meal without the parents knowing. It comes to the door. The parent answers the door and says, okay, Uber Eats. We didn't order any food. No, we have an order. The child comes out and says, I ordered it, picks up the food and goes back to his room or her room. And that's it. How often do we eat as a family these days? I mean, it's something important to human nature. They say we break bread together. Breaking bread together means we're building relationships together. Something so standard to human societies, to human culture, throughout human history, is like a lost thing in our times today. Everybody does their own thing. Families rarely eat together. Families rarely cook together. And this is another problem that I see in American society. Families rarely cook together. It's always outside food, outside food, outside food, outside food, outside food. If the health disadvantages isn't enough, right? If that's not enough, understand that it's part of building your relationship with your family, with family members, to eat together. I remember when I was a child, we would always invite one another. It was normal for families to get together and just have dinner together, especially in Ramadan. I understand there's a lot going on. Times are tough. Money is, things are becoming increasingly expensive. People have to work more. But you know what? Is that really an excuse? Is that worth weakening our families because, we don't have time to meet with one another? Well, I hope the following ahadith can really re-inspire us to the importance of eating with one another. The Prophet ﷺ was asked by a companion, Ayyul a'mal, Ayyul Islam khayr? Which Islam, what actions are best? The Prophet ﷺ says, Tut'imu ta'am, to feed one another. Now, yes, back in the day, food was scarcer. So when you feed someone, that's going above and beyond. I mean, resources are scarce, meaning that the food that you have is barely enough for your family. So if you go and you out of your way and you invite other people and you share that food, I mean, that's an act of charity that's truly worth praising. But still, we're not going to say that this is no longer the case in our times today just because there's a lot of food. There's more about feeding one another than just taking away hunger. It's about the relationships. It's about building ties. It's about discussing with one another. Food brings people together. There's a reason why there's an entire industry of food, culinary arts, going to restaurants and whatnot. Eating together helps build relationships. And check out this very beautiful hadith. اتقوا النار ولو بشق تمرة. Protect yourselves from hellfire even with a part of a date. So feeding one another is more than just having food together. It's an act of Islam. There's reward in it. It's also something we do for our best interest in the afterlife. It helps protect us from the punishment, from hellfire. And check out this hadith, which is even more beautiful. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيُرْبِي لِأَحَدِكُمْ التَّمْرَ وَاللُّقْمَةَ كَمَا يُرْبِي أَحَدُكُمْ فُلُوَّهُ أَوْ فَصِيلَهُ حَتَّى يَكُونَ مِثْلَ أُحُدٍ. Pay attention to this. This is extremely important. The Prophet ﷺ says, Allah will continue to increase the sadaqah you gave in the form of a date. See that small amount of food that you gave someone? Allah will continue to increase the reward of that the way one of you develops or continues to be behind a baby camel or a baby horse until it becomes an adult. See, a baby camel, a baby horse is not as valuable, cannot provide as much meat, it doesn't cost as much, you don't get as much in selling it as when it is fully grown. Right? So similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take your small deed, the small deed of feeding someone a date, and will continue to grow it, as the Prophet says, until it becomes the size of Uhud in good deeds. See, don't devalue feeding someone. Just because there's food everywhere and people have their families, doesn't mean inviting someone over and saying, hey, why don't you come and have dinner with us today? That's an act of charity. That's an act of sadaqah. Even as the Prophet says, the food that a man puts in his wife's morsel, in her mouth, is an act of sadaqah. And for the ladies, the food that you cook for your family is sadaqah. And the Prophet is telling us that sadaqah you see as so insignificant will grow and grow and grow by Allah until it's the size of Uhud. For what? For feeding one another. So what can we do to go back to eating with one another? Well, making an expectation on the family that at least once a week, it's family time. Once a week, we expect that everybody eats together. Right? It's rooted in the minds of our family members that, look, on Saturday, for example, on Friday, whatever day, we all eat together. And it should be more, by the way, it should be more. But if your kids are older, they're in their 20s and whatnot, they have their friends, they have their social life, they have their family members, let once a week, Friday, Saturday, whenever, Sunday, right, come together and eat together. Another thing that we can do is make cooking a social activity. When I go to these parks and I see the Mexican families, I notice something so beautiful about their culture. And that is when they cook, they split the responsibilities between them. And so you'll find on the grill, one is grilling the meat, another is grilling the chicken, another is warming up the tortillas, another one is doing whatever, and they're all working together, socializing, joking with each other, having fun with one another while they're cooking food. That is beautiful. So let your Saturdays, your Sundays be the nice day for cooking. Cook tacos, cook steak, cook burgers, and divide the responsibilities between you. Let all of you be in the kitchen together. Not put all of the responsibility on the mother and she's now juggling 30 things and it's such a difficult burden on her. Do it together in a way that's fun, in a way that's social, in a way that builds memories. Two very simple things that we can do to restore the sunnah of eating together and to get the reward of feeding one another. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among the people of Jannah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum everybody. Thank you for watching. If you're finding benefit in these videos, remember that every day throughout the month of Ramadan, we'll be releasing a new video. Our goal is to build a stronger family, especially in our times today when the family unit is really dissolving. It's so important for us as Muslims and to serve as a role model for all of humanity. Share these videos, like, drop a comment. We'll see you at the next video. Bismillah.